New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Hello again, dear ones. Robert with you over here.
Z right here.
And this is New Thought Today on the New Thought Media Network. Want to welcome you to the conversation. Please feel free to chat along, chime along, drop a comment as we go along. We would love to hear from you. Good afternoon, dear brother Wayne, all the way from Calgary. Good to see you. Glad you're here and with us. Anyone else, as you drop in, feel free to chat along, as I said. And you know, our intent here on this program, we say it right in the front of the whole video there, is we're looking at how new thought inspires and maybe shifts or not humanity's evolution, humanity's consciousness. And we do that with various guests, highlighting various events, and sometimes talking about the things that pop up in the greater world, if you will, or the media, because that's what we like to talk about, that influence or impact the New Thought movement. And this week we're talking about an article that recently was featured in the New York Times, and I'm going to drop I will drop a link in the comments to everybody. We'll put this in the description later as well if you don't see that link. However, the article doesn't paint New Thought in a very good light. Let's put it that way. Z, how about you? What did you think about reading this?
Yeah, you know, I took it with a grain of salt in some ways, because it comes at the idea of New Thought from a skeptic's perspective, which in some ways is a reporter's. That's their whole.
Yeah.
That's their whole platform, right? But the other part that was interesting to me, and I'll have to ponder it because they have a lot in there. You know, they got the TikTok ban coming up, or they're trying to ban TikTok, right? And she points out that there are a lot of influencers who are teaching so-called manifestation, and that it's an old thing and it doesn't work and it's quasi-spiritual, and she goes down a whole negative bit, and I just think that she's misinformed a little bit.
Yeah, quite a bit. So there it is, folks. There's the story. We'll get rid of that. It's called The Long Strange History of Manifesting. And the woman's name is Tara Isabella Burton. I think we should try to get her on the program, to be honest with you. And I think that might be great. A really good conversation, because it's a good read, folks. You know, I do see what you're saying, Z. It plays, and I hadn't seen it that way until you said it. It does play off of this new fear we have, or that this seems to be developing around TikTok. And it's that's a whole nother story for a whole nother episode, folks. We're not going down that road today, because you know there's no real proof that they're reporting back to China. But we want to believe that there is, and for whatever reason, that was the first thing I noticed about this article. Is it goes down the road of tearing down something real quick.
Right.
and I don't see much of a vision. And I get it. It's New Thought. If you're of the skeptic mind, it's easy to dispel or to discount anything that we believe.
Mm-hmm.
And because it takes belief, it takes faith. It's a faith, it's a philosophy, it's a way of life. And I don't see much faith in any of what is shared. A lot of good facts and then some conjecture.
But you just highlighted one thing that because we are a Christian country, anything that bumps up against the taking away, if you will, from that platform will be heavily criticized. Now, the manifestation in the Bible are many. Jesus turning wine into water, bread and loaves and fishes, telling the Peter and those that were in the boat with him, look, get out the boat. You can walk on the water too, right? Same thing of manifestation. When get out, Jesus said, "Oh, you don't believe.
It is done unto you as you believe."
Yeah.
In the basic, if you remember anything from the Bible, you should remember it is done unto you as you believe. So,
and yeah, so what winds up happening, I believe, often is that people, especially in this society where people are attention spans are short, they pick and choose. They read part of a science and not the whole science. And then they begin to try to come up with a shortcut or some expedient way. There's no way to speed up the growth of a child except years.
Right.
And so it's the same principle, is that we have to begin to look at everything, is that there are processes, and processes take time to manifest.
Yep. I'm really in that place of remembering that it's taken me 20 years to get to where I am, and I don't profess to know it all or be able to teach it all or understand it all. And even in conversations like this, I'm constantly in that learning mode. So it's in some ways, I think it's required to have a growth mindset in New Thought. And I hadn't noticed that about this article, but you are bringing it forward. Not anywhere does this author go into anything that has anything to do with the Bible. She wants to lay all of this squarely at the feet at a safe, let's say a safe target.
Right. Well, and the other thing, right up front, her stats, right? She did a Google data search according to Google statistics that during the first few months of the pandemic, the search for manifestation, right, rose 600%. Well, I would love to see what the statistics on anything during the pandemic, what they increased, because everybody was searching for everything and anything that they thought would help them get through something that the general public ignored and said it didn't exist. And then when it realized it was real, now people was like, uh-oh, I got to figure something out.
We were trying to manifest toilet paper is what we were doing, right? That's 600% is like, how do I find a roll of toilet paper? I agree with you, right? There are these things that point to, and you've heard us say this on this program before, folks. When you read anything, when you look at how people are presenting the New Thought message or not, are they looking to build up or are they looking to tear down?
Yeah.
And it seems pretty quick to recognize it's a well thought out argument. Don't get me. And she hits on most of, she name drops pretty much anybody that was anybody at one time or another. Interestingly enough, she doesn't mention Ernest Holmes, though.
Yes.
She talks about people I've actually never heard of before. I had never heard the name Charles Benjamin Newcomb I guess he wrote a book in 1897 called All's Right with the World. And that's cool. And I'd never heard of him, but it's almost like, well, now that I say it, I wonder if this is written by AI.
Because one of the things is too, as you look at that little piece there, is that New York Times has promoted Deepak Chopra, Wayne Dyer, Joe Dispenza, in a lot of cases, Oprah Winfrey, and all of these articles and countless other authors and speakers that they may not call it manifestation, but it's definitely, and that's a bad name, I think, but it's definitely, all of that is in the New Thought genre, right? In this new way of looking at science and spirituality and bringing them together so that you can understand what it means to manifest, and that it's a holistic thing. It's physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual alignment.
Yes.
And I've always found, last thing is that the best way to understand manifestation in your personal life is to keep a journal and then look back in history and see what presented itself to you.
Yes, exactly. I remember and I love that idea. Like, keep the record, right? Prove that you believe and understand this philosophy. And I'm reminded of that old quote by Reverend Dr. Fred Vogt. If you were hauled into a court of law and accused of being a religious scientist, a new thoughter, someone that believes this philosophy, would there be enough evidence to convict you? You have to stop quoting him, because nobody knows what religious science is anymore. We got to just make that up new. So we're taking that over. Dr. Fred, thank you very much, sir. We're taking that over. If you were hauled into a court of law and accused of being a new thoughter, would there be enough evidence to convict you? And I don't mean physical, like, oh, I've got the books and I've got the symbols and I've got and this would go for any true religion or philosophy in my book. We could substitute Muslim for that word. By the way, I do believe Ramadan has begun.
Yes, it has.
Yes, it has. Folks, if you're unaware, my dear brother Elzia here, how many years now?
No.
We're not giving up that number.
Yeah, more than 20.
There we go. Okay. More than enough to have been around a few blocks. Yes. Okay. So, but back to my point, on any of these philosophies or religion, is there enough evidence to say you believe this? You are demonstrating this. You are activating these principles and these processes. And unfortunately, many of the let's call them the get rich quick crowd, or get enlightened quick crowd. They want to believe in the instant manifestation, and if you don't get that instant manifestation, then this ain't real.
Right.
And I know in my own life, there are doors that are opening today because I have finally given up on a long held belief that just was it wasn't necessary for me to hang on to, but I did.
Right.
And so I can't blame the process. I can't blame the philosophy simply because of an immature or unskilled practitioner.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like if I give a child a gun, bad example maybe, but it definitely gets the point across, and I don't teach them gun safety and how to use it, and they do something horrible, whose fault? Is it mine? Is it the kids? Is it the gun manufacturer? I mean, the thing is, there has to be someone who teaches the principles and the practice and the safety and the inclusiveness of any tool that is used.
Yes.
Right? Be that a car, be that a stove, be that new thought principles. Yep. And when we can begin to do that, people will begin to see manifestation. And like you said, it's not an instant. Now, there are moments where it happens that way, and I'm sure everyone in some way or form or fashion can recall an incident where they thought about so and so called them.
Right.
Or something in that vein, right? I was thinking about you and you called me. Ain't that something, right? Well, if you understand, now we're going to go deep. If you understand some quantum physics, and that's what a lot of these people don't take the time to get into, in terms of how light and electrons and energy and correlated fields and those types of things work. Now, of course, there's people who will go down another path, but at the essence of it, that's what we're dealing with. And that's why Ernest Holmes in the Science of Mind textbook, very first sentence says, I look forward to the day when science and spirituality walk hand in hand from the visible into the invisible. And when you start talking about manifestation, you stepped into the invisible, because no one truly understands what manifestation means, right? The reason that Jobs and Gates were able to create those, they had an idea that they began to put into practice. And there was a situation where they went to Xerox and got some information, or wherever they got it from, that caused that thing to manifest.
Yes.
From a thought to an actual Microsoft, operating system, or to an Apple computer.
Yep. Absolutely. I'm being struck by that piece, the reminder that in the Science of Mind textbook, in the philosophy itself, there's one chapter on the law of attraction. That's it. And that's a pretty big book. There's 25, 26, 27 chapters or something like that. There's all these various parts of the puzzle. There's all these various pieces to how to utilize and how to effectively live these principles and these practices. And the practices, this is another place where people pull one thing out or another. And I think present again an incomplete picture of all that it's going to take to be a master manifester, if that is even your calling, because not everybody here is here to demonstrate how to manifest. We all have that power, but not every one of us has. That's not a priority. That's not in our soul's purpose, in our life's mission, to prove this. Others of us are here to prove different aspects of the principles and the practices. Right. And we all have a unique mix. So again, I think our author in the New York Times, she loses sight a little bit of that. We each have a different piece to play in the puzzle. We each have a different part to play in this great thing called life. And therefore, every one of us is, by our very nature, going to manifest to a different degree, or at a different level. And let's go another level. You want to go even really deeper, is then now we know we have unique gifts and skills and talents. And then we go into that place of, okay, so now am I using this for my own good, or for the betterment of an organization, or for the betterment of human consciousness and society?
Yeah. And again, as you're talking, I'm thinking about all of the authors. Now, this author mentions James Allen. For one time, James Allen's As a Man Thinketh, So Is He was a cornerstone of this society, right? But even if we look at Dale Carnegie, or Zig Ziglar, or Dennis Waitley, or a huge number of other authors and successful businessmen who manifested things, were able to do that with their sales pitch or with their books in a way of helping people create this idea, this attitude, this perspective, this lens on the world. And one thing she makes in this article that's totally counter to what New Thought is she talks about people willing, W-I-L-L, things to happen. And it's not about willing, right? It's not about focusing on my mind. And that's not what this is. Manifestation in its true sense is about alignment.
Yeah.
Not willing. You have to have a thought. You have to have a creative perspective. You have to have an imagination to begin to see the possibilities of the infinite world. But to say that I'm going to will that to happen, that's not how it works.
Right. If anything, we have to be willing, allowing, we have to be open to the process working through us.
Yes.
Working through and as our lives. And that's one of those flips that a lot of people can miss. And again, an immature understanding of the philosophy that leads people, well, to do some things that aren't beneficial to everybody.
I like this program on I think it's Discovery called Homestead Rescue, right? This family goes out and help people who are trying to do some homesteading, and they're experts at it, and they go out and help them do certain things. Well, I was watching one episode, and they were trying to make a fallout shelter for tornadoes, and person went out and got a big tank and was about to cut into it, and the father came over and said, "Oh, wait a minute, what kind of gas was in that thing? Is there any left in there? Because if you spark it, that's going to be a problem," right? And of course it did, and it didn't. But a prime example of someone who understands the science and someone who's familiar with the science but don't quite understand the science, that was about to create a havoc situation because they hadn't went through the rudiments. They hadn't learned the basics. They hadn't got to the point to where, one thing I found about manifestation is I have to get out the way, i.e. my ego and my pride and all those things to really go and really want to say, look what I did, right? That has to go out the window.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't oftentimes because we're looking for a quick fix.
Because we're looking for the quick fix. Yep, exactly. Hey, we're going to take a real quick break, folks, and then come back with more. We've got more of this article that we want to discuss and take it at an even deeper level. We appreciate you being part of the conversation. We invite you to stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. We're just going to say hi to a couple of quick sponsors and then be right back with you of more on New Thought Today. Stay tuned. And we're back with more of New Thought today here on the New Thought Media Network. We're discussing this article from the New York Times around manifesting. And something else I've noticed digging into this is the author likes to link back to her own material as a show of, I guess, validation or of her own work. And I just found another one while we were on the break where she links back to a podcast that she has. And it all seemed like everything I can find about this woman leads back to this same kind of idea of being a self-made person. And in this article, she actually aligns New Thought in today's political commentary. Echoes of New Thought are visible in our politics too, where self-invention and the idea that reality can and should bend to belief has never been more in vogue. She uses George Santos as an example of someone who claimed to be a self-made man, and also points to Donald Trump. Yeah. Now, we've talked before about, and I think it's pretty well known that Donald Trump attended church with Norman Vincent Peale. There's no question that Norman Vincent Peale in some ways is associated through or was teaching New Thought, whether he called it that or not. Mm-hmm. And here's my point in all this. Reality came back to bite George Santos for the misuse of these principles. I believe the same is happening with former President Trump as well. The arc of humanity, of the universe, bends towards the good, bends towards those that are building rather than those that are tearing down. And I may sound like I'm beating the same drum here, folks, because I am. Right? She's using examples that say that were people that misuse these principles. And I think, and when we get to the end of the article here, you'll see, I think, why she feels compelled to do this. But what do you think, Z? Is it realistic? Is it, like, do we judge New Thought based on those lesser practitioners, those that are misusing it? I've never heard George say anything about New Thought. I don't know there's any connection we could find to him actually knowing the New Thought principles. But where's...
Well, I think, it's a tongue-in-cheek kind of conversation, because as we were saying earlier, things that used to be associated with New Thought, like meditation and wellness and these kinds of things, are now in the corporate boardrooms, where previously, as little as 5 years, well, maybe, 5 years ago, definitely 10 years ago, there would have been no mentioning in any major corporation about providing workshops and classes and applications for their workers to be involved in anything that's closely resembled New Thought, i.e. meditation, diet, things like that, right? Holistic living. Let's put it all under that. And now, if you are a corporation and you don't have that, you're looked at with one eye closed, right? And so part of it, I think, is like everything else. Whatever is on the cutting edge always gets scrutinized. And the challenge becomes those who have not prepared themselves, if you will, who've not done the work, who've not done the study, who've not asked people who've done it. And that list goes on and on. That, when it's like I heard something the other day. In 1977, Apple was selling for 10 cents a share. Now, back then, computers were just coming on the scene, and people were like, ooh, but those people who knew, who done the work, who done the study, they said, oh, I want a truckload of it for 10 cents a share.
Right.
And it's the same kind of analogy where right now we know, look, look at all of the brain science that they're doing now with EKGs and the MRIs and everything, where they're looking at the brain. Just the other day, they found, if certain regions of the brain can get activated, that they can have some effects on reducing Alzheimer's. Now, we know through study with using that same technology, through meditation, you can activate certain regions of the brain, and that the brain does not know the difference between seeing the thing and thinking about the thing.
Yeah, right.
And so we, just like any good scientist, they make a postulation and they start extrapolating on the idea. And as they say in mathematical and scientific work, if A plus B holds and C plus D holds, now we can extrapolate, right? Now we start putting different things in those variables. That's how they calculate to go to Mars. That's how they just calculate to go to the moon. That's how they manifest it. Somebody took a thought, they put some calculations. If this hole and that hole, boom, we can make it happen.
Yes. Yes.
If I sound excited, it's because I am.
Whenever I let you start talking about science, yeah, I know you get excited. But that's another proof of that very first sentence, right? When science and spirituality walk hand in hand, we're there. We're already there.
Yeah.
And it seems like some people are kind of catching up to the story.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are still in the catch-up phase, in catching up to the true implications of what New Thought can do for society.
And one of the challenges, she mentions in this article, the whole idea about prosperity preaching or prosperity gospel.
Prosperity gospel, yes.
Right. And she uses that as a way of tying that to manifesting and New Thought in a kind of a backhanded way. But I mean, I'm from the South. And the whole idea of preachers taking advantage of their congregation ain't nothing new. And it ain't got nothing to do with manifestation, in my opinion, right? And so to tell someone or to preach an idea that we are God's property, if you will, and that God wants us to be prosperous is a valid statement, right?
Right.
But when I begin to use that to take advantage of people and begin to do these sleight of hand tricks, now we've stepped into something else that got nothing to do with New Thought. That got something to do with someone's greed or someone's misinterpretation or misuse of the law, of the teachings, of the books, and there should be a little bit of reparations for that.
I think if we were to look up, if we were to have a transcript of this program, the word misuse would be it. If it was a Wordle, it'd be big and bold and right in the middle, because that is what it keeps coming up back to, is people that are misusing these principles, misusing the law. And I keep feeling it comes from an immature and incomplete understanding of the philosophy.
And, sometimes people use the law and don't know it. They put themselves in right alignment and things happen. One of my favorite things in terms of alignment is like, there's no way for me to get on top of my house, and because I don't understand the invisible law of gravity, that when I jump off, I'm not going to come to the crash into the ground, right?
Right.
It's irrespective of my knowledge of it or my correct use of it. And I think, she mentions Oprah in here. And I think Oprah is a good example of this principle in action, given her background and where she came from, her, the abuse that she had to deal with and so forth and so on and da. And looking at her now would be like, okay, I guarantee you, she looked back at the course she just came from. She can see. It's like the poem, Footsteps. He says, God, you told me you're gonna be with me, and he said, oh yeah, well, I was carrying you the time you only saw one step, as opposed to two sets of steps. It's the same thing, but people don't open their minds enough. We've been locked into these ideologies and these philosophies, and because we're in this mine is better than yours, and I got to discount yours and never even take anything that's good, we lead to these kind of articles without a real in-depth look at it.
Even her closing paragraph, it is only by understanding the religious and occult traditions from which the concept of manifesting descends that we can see it for what it truly is. But she hasn't given us that, actually.
No.
She hasn't gone back to the earliest instances that we know of. And we're going to talk about that in just a second, because a New Thought minister did write a rebuttal article and has submitted it to the New York Times for consideration. But I want to finish how she finishes this out. So it's only by understanding how all this descended from that we can see what it truly is: a spiritualized gloss on the same diluted logic that suggests poverty is a choice. I don't think we do that. And that underpins so much political disinformation. I don't think we do that either. After all, if reality is only ever what we make it, then those who possess the fewest scruples about conforming to the truth are the ones who will have the most power to reshape the future. That is absolutely not what New Thought teaches. That is the exact opposite of New Thought teaches. We teach that those that possess the most scruples about conforming to the truth are the ones that have the most power to shape the future.
Yes.
And so even I could have skipped to the very last paragraph, I guess, and been able to see that this is a defeatist perspective, and there's no belief in the good.
Yeah.
And we teach it all the time. There's a power for good in the universe. You can use it. If you believe that there is a power for evil, we got a problem, because those two powers would have destroyed each other long ago. And this is, she's focusing in on the darkness and believes the darkness can dispel the light. But what we know is the light dispels the darkness.
And if we really go deep into the science, you can't have one without the other. So light and dark are two sides of a coin. If you get rid of one, you got rid of the other by definition. And so again, we have to begin to look at the wholeness of things and not pick and choose, or not get caught in the contrast of how we understand things, and begin to believe that each one of the contrasts have a life of their own. They only exist because of the other, right? Left and right is the two sides of one thing. It's not two different things. It's the one side or the other of one thing. And so, you look back, you were talking about, if we go back and look at Catholic saints or Christian saints or Jewish mystics or Islamic mystics, the things that they were doing, or they're credited with doing, fits into a New Thought manifestation kind of modality.
Yeah.
They were able to reach into their mind and observe the universe and put the laws and principles together so that something happened.
Yep. And as I was alluding to, one of our ministers, so this article was shared in a minister's communication platform earlier in the week. One of our other ministers, as you saw, that it was dated on the 9th, so it's not that old. And one of our ministers wrote a rebuttal piece. We're not going to share all of it here now. It's over 1,200 words, and it doesn't attack the article point by point, but it does outline and it does correct some of the places where we feel the authors made a mistake. One of the first is Wikipedia reports the origins of manifestation have been traced back to various philosophical and spiritual traditions, such as Hinduism, Buddhism, and Taoism. And again, as in the Bible, Jesus said, "It is done unto you as you believe." This is what you were just speaking to, Z. It's there. We can go through and directly, but through the teachings, without attacking, without making this woman wrong, right? Mm-hmm. She could become one of the greatest advocates of New Thought once she gets shown the light.
Right.
But she continues to look for the darkness. That's what she's going to find.
Well, you know, one person of such is Lynn McTaggart. Now, some of you may have heard of Lynn McTaggart. Lynn McTaggart was a journalist, and she went to look into some of the New Thought principles, and I forget right off the top of my head now. She went to interview a scientist who was looking at the quantum and everything, and she left, you know, with a new thought, if you will. She went and did her homework, and she became a believer, if you will, right? Because she went out, came in as a skeptic, but did her work just in case. And as she did the work, she found out that this all holds true. So I think I need to, and she's done some great stuff.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. All right, folks, we're getting close to that point in time where we want to make sure we check back in with our patrons and our sponsors and those that make all of this happen. So we're going to take another quick break, but we will be back in just a couple of moments with our final thoughts and conclusions around this, and maybe even a little surprise before we're gone. So stay with us, stay tuned. We'll be back in just a moment. Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center, Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living, Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring. Yes, thank you to all of our organizational sponsors and individual donors. We go a long way to get this message out into all the areas and all the different platforms, and it is through your help and financial contribution that makes that all possible. Thank you for being a part of the New Thought Media Network. All right, folks, we're into our final segment here on New Thought today, and I want to share this last piece because I don't have permission to share this whole piece with everybody by the author, Reverend Mary Mitchell, just yet. However, if it does get published on as a rebuttal to this or as a response to this article in the New York Times, we'll make sure you know about it. We'll share it with the whole letter with you. At the end, though, what she shares with At the end of each day, I encourage you to think about how many negative or positive feelings you've put into your subconscious mind since you woke up. If there are more negative than positive, pledge to yourself that this is a new day and begin to carve a new road into subconscious mind, and be pleasantly surprised when you experience the yes response. It's an adventure, and now remember that you're driving the boat. And I think that's so important to be in that place of holding ourselves accountable. What am I putting into the divine mind? Is it more negative or is it more positive each day? It's not saying that we're not going to have tough thoughts. It's not saying we're not going to experience tough things in our lives. But do I make lemonade or do I just sit crying about the smashed lemons?
Right.
See?
You know, it's so funny that people really just, you know, they go about things looking for disparities, it appears often, right? As opposed to keeping an open mind, as opposed to letting it play. Look, if I'm giving somebody dirty water, pretty soon it's gonna come out. I mean, you don't have to do a whole lot of finagling to say, you know, he's selling dirty water. It's gonna come out. Now, you know, that may not be a good example, but what I'm trying to say is, in this day and age, in this country where we got a cancel culture, you know, you can be canceled for anything, and in some cases, it turns out that people got canceled for something that wasn't even attributed to them. We need to begin to take better inventory of what's going on in us, through us, around us, so we can be able to make better decisions and be able to not always look to criticize somebody and get a quick video to put on a TikTok or put on an Instagram or put on a Facebook to say, look at me, see how right I am, see how good I am. Right?
Yep.
We're still one humanity. We're still on this planet together. And if it gets blown up, everybody on it gonna get blown up.
Exactly. And, you know, and again, I always like to come back to the fact that if we can have respectful conversations, everybody can learn something new. Everybody can learn something new. As religious scientists, as new thoughters, we can learn more about what leads a skeptic to immediately jump to certain conclusions, or how people utilize their research tools to come to certain conclusions. Mm-hmm. And we may, along the way, find our own hidden blind spots and our own hidden biases. You know, all right, I'll admit it, it's happened to me before, so I imagine it's happened to you too. Oh, wow, I never looked at it that way. And from a certain perspective, I can't argue with her conclusions. I can point out that I don't believe they're fully informed, mm-hmm. but from a perspective, yes,
yeah,
the prosperity gospel can do damage if taught improperly, if taught at the hands of an amateur. All of these things can be used antithetical to the law, if you will.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of being human. That's free will. That's our opportunity to truly be human. And I think life would be really, really boring if we didn't have the people that give us that contrast.
You know, and one thing we talked about, you know, there is misuse. Again, you'll find this misuse of the term and the ideology and the philosophy of manifestation. I see people all the time, they're talking about teaching manifestation, right? But if you look at them, they haven't manifest much other than to have a good sales pitch to get you to buy their program, right? But if you look at their track record, if you will, they haven't created anything. They haven't manifested anything, but they manifested being a good salesman, right? and then begin
He
to
manifested $600 to rent a car for an hour to shoot a video. Yeah.
and then they erode the whole concept and principles of the thing, so that this thing that could help people, that could heal people, that could move them forward, get discounted because someone has misused it or used it for ill gain and for ill purposes.
Yes. Can you say James Arthur Ray? His name's been running through my head this entire program.
Yeah.
And we're not going to go down that rabbit hole, folks. And it's an old story, but it is a real story of people that got hurt due to the hubris nature of an inexperienced and immature teacher of New Thought principles and practices, and co-opted, culturally appropriated practices. But again, we're not going to go down.
I was going to say, because that was some cultural appropriation that got that situation off track. But yeah. I think one thing that I'll take away from this article personally is to make sure that if I'm teaching these principles, or when I teach these principles, that I am thorough, that I have ample sources on both sides so that people understand what we're dealing with, and some personal or exemplary indications or incidents where this thing has worked and does work and will work.
Yeah. I think that's one of I agree with you. I think that's my big takeaway for this article is obviously, as New Thought, we can do better at helping people to understand what it is we do really teach and what it is that we don't teach as well. And we can do better at being the living demonstration of what it is we teach. So there's no question. So that these questions are discounted as quickly as maybe they might rise, because there's just nothing there.
Yep. And I mean, and if you look at any philosophy, any ideology, any religion or spiritual tradition, in my opinion and study, they all say, here are a set of laws, practices, and principles that, if used properly or if explored and investigated, these types of things can happen. And, one of my favorite is the principle of electricity. You can get hydroelectricity, thermal, turbine, many different laws have been extracted from the principle of electricity, slightly different, but produce the same thing. Will anyone say that solar energy is any less energy than fossil fuel energy? I don't think so.
No. Same principle. Different outcome. All right, folks, that's what we've got today. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for being a part of the New Thought Media Network. Please feel free to share with your friends, like, share, and subscribe. Send this around. And if anyone happens to know the author, let her know. We would love to have her on the show. I think it would be a great program to have a respectful and deeper conversation around all of this. So thanks for being with us. If you need anything more, you know how to find us. New Thought Media Network, ntmedia.org. Until next time, we wish you peace and richest blessings. Bye now.